I'm Sarah Wilson and you're listening to the Roots and All podcast. I'm here to help you get growing. Join me as I explore everything plant related both indoors and out and provide the information you need to create your perfect green environment. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. This week I'm speaking to Alex Mitchell, aka The Edible Gardener. Alex is the weekly gardening columnist for the Evening Standard and has written 5 books about gardening, the latest of which was published this April and is called Crops in Tight Spots. In the interview, I ask Alex about the book and about growing food when you're short on space, and although you may think it's only relevant for those with smaller growing spaces, it's not actually. And it's also really useful beyond growing edibles because she has some really smart ideas and design solutions that can be applied as much to ornamental plants as edibles and can be applied to those tricky spots in larger gardens that you might want to green up. And it also has lots of smart tips for those wanting to recycle, so I do fully recommend getting hold of a copy. I started by reflecting on one of the things I most loved about the book. I like how you see small spaces as a virtue. What are the benefits to having limited space?
Well, I think that when people have little space, they're forced to be creative. And that's when you get really exciting things happen, because if you only have a small balcony, then you have to look at every single inch of space. And that might be the walls, or it might be the railings, or it could be even above you. It sort of forces you into this kind of creativity, which I love. And that's why I really like writing about small spaces and why I like gardening in small spaces, because you are just encouraged to think outside the box, I think, and create your own ideas, because you have to adapt whatever you're doing to your particular space. It might be a downpipe that you want to do something with. It might be a shelf. You know, everyone's space is different, however small it is. I just love the way people get so into that and they really create stuff that's their own and they take a lot of pride in it. And that's where they express themselves. And I love that about it. It's not just rows of cabbages. It's like, I'm growing things in hanging baskets. I've devised this amazing pulley system to water my hanging baskets, or I've got a water butt made out of an olive oil container or something. I just love all that. And it kind of brings it all alive, I think.
I think that really struck me actually reading the book, because I thought, wow, this is really creative. There's some really clever ideas in here and I'm going to use them in my own garden. So you sort of talk about a few different spaces that could be used, such as balconies and all the rest of it. And I was fascinated by the section on indoor growing, and particularly your sushi herbs.
Yeah. Well, I just thought, what can I do that maybe hasn't been done before? To be honest, I was kind of exploring different microgreens and you know, what you can do on a tiny space using just the top of an old plastic punnet or something with literally some kitchen roll. I just thought, how could I recreate some flavors from different sort of cuisines and stuff? That's daikon radish seeds, wasabi rocket, and perilla or shiso. You basically just grow them as microgreens, cut them very small. The wasabi rocket is called that because it does taste a bit like wasabi. And the daikon radish, you normally use it as the root, which is really long, like this crazy long white root. I grew some in a raised bed. They were insanely long. I couldn't believe it. But you can just eat the leaves from microgreens and they have a similar sort of taste. And the perilla is just great because if you grow the purple one particularly, it's just really pretty. Makes a great garnish. So it's just a way of sort of bringing those little flavours in. Again, it's just a way of sort of thinking, I've got the small space. What can I do? You know, and that's what the indoor stuff was all about, because I also was aware that a lot of people don't have any outdoor space at all. One of the things I realised doing the book, which I hadn't realised, was that windowsills, not everyone has them. I just sort of assumed everyone has windowsills. In fact, I don't even have outdoor windowsills, so I don't know where I got that idea from, really. But I've got indoor ones, but not outdoor ones. And a lot of people I've spoken to have been like, well, I don't have any windowsills, you know. So I realised that, you know, that might be a bit of a cliche, the idea of the London box out the front and everything. So indoors, we've all got space indoors. I just thought, yes, you can grow chilies, you can grow tomatoes, you can grow lots of things you would grow outside that like Mediterranean stuff indoors, but they probably will get a bit leggy. You probably get aphids. You will get crop. You may have to help with pollination with tomatoes. They're okay if you have no other option. But there are some things which are actually really fun to grow inside. And I really like exploring that, which was the kind of what I call the spice rack. So turmeric, cardamom, lemongrass, and what was the other one? I can't remember. And
ginger.
what I loved about them was that they actually look really nice. And I think they look just like houseplants. The cardamom in particular, I love, because if you rub the leaves together, it's just the most lovely smell. It's like this sort of sweet, dusty kind of smell. It's really lovely. It looks a bit like a mini bamboo. It's just a pretty little houseplant. And I've kept that going for a couple of years now, and I love it. The ginger did its thing. I harvested my ginger. The lemongrass I managed to kill because I watered it too much. That's one thing to remember. They do not like being soggy, I've realised. And the turmeric was brilliant. I got loads of turmeric off it. And I froze some. I'm grating it into my smoothies and all that. And then I kept some back, and I'm trying to root it in that little pot over there. But it's been there for about 3 months. It's doing absolutely nothing. It's very slow. And I really hope it grows because, it would be nice if it did. And then, because it's a pretty plant.
It's lovely.
Really big paddle leaves. It's like very sort of pale green, fresh leaves. And it's just a bit different, If you can grow something inside that looks nice and you can eat it, then, why not?
Did you get pink flowers on your...
Not yet. No. And I haven't had them on cardamom either, because that's apparently where, the cardamom pods are what you want, but it takes a few years to get that. But you can use the leaves in cooking. I haven't done that yet. I've just been loving smelling the leaves because they're just gorgeous. But you can wrap a food in the leaves and you can use them in sliced and stuff. But yeah, what you really want for the pods is the flowers, but you can't necessarily guarantee you'll get that indoors in this country.
I bought my turmeric in flower because there's a guy that's growing them now. I think he's on the continent and he's selling them, and then some of the profits go towards a charity. I can't think which one it is.
Oh, right.
And I tried to overwinter mine, but then I am particularly bad with most plants, really. And I kind of left it festering in a pot under my dresser, and then I took it out in the spring and
so you tried to propagate the
like you would a ginger, just basically cut the foliage back.
So did it work? Did it rot?
Yeah.
People are so interested in turmeric as well. I thought it'd be fun to find a way you could grow it.
Yeah.
I tried mushrooms as well, which was kind of fun. Mushrooms are lovely to eat and everything, but they're not the prettiest thing to grow, I have to be honest. You have to kind of commit to that. You're like, okay, I'm doing mushrooms. It's not like, oh, look at my lovely mushrooms on my windowsill. It's really quite disgusting. It's a sort of plastic bag with kind of mist and disgusting fungi white mass. You get good mushrooms, and I did grow some nice mushrooms.
I thought it was quite interesting. You've talked about recycling compost as well, which is a massive consideration, isn't it, if you've got to lug it up and downstairs. So how do you do that?
Well, I think that compost and pots is a massive thing. I mean, we all need to try, and we want to try, not to buy so much stuff in. Obviously, with plastic being such a big problem for people, we're very aware of that. Every time you buy compost, you're buying another plastic bag. Even if you're very careful about the compost you buy, and you buy peat-free and it's organic and all of that, then you're still buying something in. It's being delivered to you, or you're going to get it. I'm always trying to find ways to make it last longer, or cut down on it, or use alternative methods, because I just think it's heavy and it's a hassle and no one really wants to be throwing it away. So there's a lot of confusion about the word compost. And I think the Americans have it better. They call it potting mix or soil. They have two different words. Like we call it compost. It's like for the same thing, which is compost that you plant into or sow seeds into, or compost that you make. They're different because the compost you make from your banana skins is not suitable for sowing seeds into. It will kill them probably because of fungal disease, and it won't be right. It just won't be the right mix. That's confusing for a start off. Let's say you do have your own compost bin, which, people should do if they can, or a wormroot bin. Then how can you use that in your pots? You can mulch it. But what Bob Flowerdew suggests, which I love, is that if you're planting a big pot for tomatoes or anything like that, fill half the bottom half with your homemade stuff. It may not be sort of fungally sterile. It may not be perfect, but it's, you're using that. And then just use half bagged, bought in stuff, which will be, get them off to a good start. And so you're not using as much. You can, reduce by half the amount of compost you're using. But obviously you can only use bought in compost if you're sowing seed, because it's just too risky. I've tried it and it's just too risky. It just dies. So I think feeding compost as well is such a big thing, because obviously once you've grown something, like a tomato, let's say, you've got to October, November, you've cut it at the base, or you've pulled out the roots, you're left with this kind of dry mat at the bottom with lots of fibrous roots, probably dried out and rubbish. So, the temptation is chuck it on the flower bed if you have it. If you don't even have flower bed, what do you do? Just leave it there, I guess, and top it up. And that's probably what you should do, is that don't replace compost. You never need to get rid of it. Just keep adding more stuff to the top, mix it in. And if you have a wormery bin, you can add a few handfuls of that in, and that will replenish it completely. It's really good stuff. Basically, just bung as much food as I can on the thing to keep it going. I really do, because you just want to keep that compost fertile as much as you can.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I'm a nightmare for chucking it away and starting again. I always think, like you say, when it's matted and full of roots, I always think, oh God, there can't be anything left in that. It looks so dry and manky.
But seaweed meal's another good one to mix that in. I just go all out. I'm just like, I don't really know the science of it. I sort of think, throw everything at it. Because I had a Japanese wineberry with really yellow leaves about a month ago, just looked really manky, growing in a bucket, tiny bucket as well. So poor thing is desperate. So I went all out. I just scraped the top bit off, chucked on loads of wormery compost, like really, because that's seriously really good feeding. Some seaweed meal, cut like a handful of that, a few slow release pellets, and some really good compost. And it's looking brilliant. It's good. Just glossy. I feel so proud.
What do you think are your best performing crops that you grow outdoors in terms of yield? And what is over in the blink of an eye, but it's worth growing anyway because it's so good?
I think cucumbers are really undervalued. They're brilliant and they taste a lot better and different to the ones you buy. So I would definitely go for cucumbers. You get a lot of them as well. Perpetual spinach, absolute winner. You can keep cutting it forever. Tomatoes, can't go wrong with those. They taste better than the ones in the shops, and you can get a lot, particularly of cordon variety. I'm not so keen on growing the little ones. I just don't think there's quite a lot of hassle. You don't necessarily get so many, and I don't think they often taste as good. That's probably a bit contentious. In the book, I sort of experimented with trying to increase the yield from one plant because, we don't all have room for more than one pot. So I trained the two lower side stems up and made a sort of candelabra shape, sort of a tripody one. And it did work very well. I did genuinely get 3 times the amount. And it wasn't hard at all.
Wasn't it?
No, you just selected the bottom ones. I just left a few extras in case of, disaster. Just put 3 bamboos in. So just literally tied in 3 stems as if it was 3 plants.
Yeah.
You have to keep it fed, obviously. And I do think people forget to feed in pots. They think, oh, why is this so rubbish? Oh, it's because you're not feeding it, because compost only lasts for 6 weeks. I am experimenting with one from Dalesford, which claims to be no need to feed.
Yeah.
And that's a good one to grow. Padron peppers are brilliant. I mean, chili peppers are amazing too, because, you get like 40 off a plant, tiny plants as well, brilliant for window boxes. And this Padron, because I'm obsessed with Padron peppers, because I've been to Spain quite a lot and I love them in tapas. And I actually hate spicy food. So it was crazy by growing all these chilies I never ate. So I thought I'd do Padrons. And I've got 5 in the green, well, it's a lot in the cold frame. They could be happy outside now anyway. We're in early June. And I've had 16 so far, and it's only early June. Another one that I love and people don't grow enough of, I think, is the Cape gooseberry, physalis. Makes a lovely plant, really tasty, pretty too. And lovely fruits. And you can keep them going from year to year. Yeah. So if you have a greenhouse, you can bung it in there over winter and then bring it out. So they get quite big and you get quite a lot from them. I just think the fruit's underrated generally. Yeah. I think strawberries are tricky. I wouldn't bother, really, if I'm honest. I just think they're a lot of hassle. But other fruits, if you can fit them, are brilliant. And I think gooseberries, amazing. Rhubarb, if you have space for rhubarb, I mean, you're just going to get so much. So I'm quite pragmatic about what I grow, really. It's raspberries, potatoes, broad beans, garlic. I grow things which are easy. But I love, I'm growing a little mini kiwi, which I'm excited about. It's yet to fruit, but it's looking really good and it's climbing over the wall brilliantly. So I'm hoping for some fruit this year because I quite like growing unusual things.
Also, if you like to eat them, I grew cucumelons once. And they were the most
tried
disgusting
that. They're horrible.
Things. Yeah,
I know. What's the point of that?
No point
I know.
at all.
I feel the same about, quite a lot of things actually. And I have grown courgettes, obviously, and I just don't really like them. I've tried so many ways to make myself like them and just don't. Salad's great, but I slightly wouldn't bother unless you really want to with the baby salad. I'm slightly kind of getting a bit like life's too short. I know that's a bit... look, we all write about it and we've all done it, and I've snipped it and I've eaten